The bus ride back to the village took nearly 14 hours. Every mile away from Chicago felt like pressure leaving my chest. By the time the skyscrapers disappeared behind empty highways and open fields, I could finally breathe normally again. Funny thing about cities, they can surround you with millions of people and still make you feel completely alone. I spent most of the ride staring out the window, thinking about Daniel as a little boy. I remember teaching him how to bait a fishing hook near Miller's Creek. He cried the first time he caught a fish because he felt guilty for hurting it. That boy once had kindness in him. Somewhere along the way, ambition replaced it. Around sunset, the bus finally reached our county station. The air smelled like soil and rain. Real air, not perfume and concrete. Martha was waiting outside in her old pickup truck wearing the same denim jacket she'd worn for at least 10 years. She spotted me immediately and frowned when she saw my suitcase. "You look terrible," she said bluntly. That was Martha. "No sugar ko ating." "Good to see you too," I answered dryly. She hugged me anyway. Real hugs from old friends feel different from polite city embraces. They remind you still exist. During the drive home, Martha kept glancing at me suspiciously. "So what happened?" she finally asked. I stared ahead through the windshield. Daniel asked me to leave. Martha's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "That idiot boy of yours. He's not a boy anymore." Clearly, I didn't tell her the exact words yet. Somehow speaking them aloud would make them even more real. When we reached my farmhouse, I sat silently for several seconds before stepping out. The porch light still worked. The old windmill creaked softly behind the barn. Everything looked exactly the same as when I left, yet somehow smaller, lonelier. Martha helped carry my suitcase inside. Dust covered parts of the living room furniture, but the house still smelled familiar. Wood smoke, old books, coffee grounds. "Home. You sure you'll be all right here alone?" she asked carefully. "I was alone before Chicago." "Yeah, but now your heart's worse." I shrugged lightly. "At least nobody here thinks I'm a burden." Martha stopped moving. "He actually said that." I nodded once. Her face hardened instantly with anger. "That ungrateful little—" "Leave it," I interrupted quietly. "What's done is done." But even as I said it, the words still burned inside me. That first night back home, I barely slept. Every room carried memories. My wife, Eleanor, humming while cooking breakfast. Daniel racing through the hallway as a child. Family photographs lined the fireplace like ghosts watching me. Around 3 in the morning, I sat alone on the porch wrapped in an old blanket while cold wind moved through the fields. That's when I finally allowed myself to admit the truth. Daniel hadn't just rejected me. He had rejected everything I spent my life believing family meant. For decades, I convinced myself sacrifice guaranteed loyalty. That if you gave your children enough love, enough opportunity, enough pieces of yourself, they would carry that gratitude forever. I was wrong. Children grow into whoever the world rewards them for becoming. And the world rewarded Daniel for forgetting where he came from. The next morning, village life resumed around me naturally. People stopped by after hearing I'd returned. Old neighbors brought food. Mr. Jenkins from across the road fixed my porch railing without asking for payment. Nobody asked uncomfortable questions directly, but everyone sensed something had happened. Small villages operate on instinct more than information. Around noon, I walked slowly toward the barn. My chest hurt slightly from the cold air, but I ignored it. Inside, sunlight cut through wooden cracks and long golden beams. My old tractor sat exactly where I'd left it months earlier. I rested my hand against the rusted metal and suddenly felt tears building in my eyes. Not because of the tractor itself, because this barn held proof of a life that mattered. Every blister on my hands, every exhausting season, every sacrifice. In Chicago, those things became sources of embarrassment. Here, they meant something. A few days passed quietly. Then Daniel finally called. I stared at the phone ringing on the kitchen table for nearly a minute before answering. "Hello." Silence lingered briefly. "Did you arrive okay?" Same question. Same emotional distance. "Yes." "Good." Another silence. Conversations between strangers pretending to be family. Finally, Daniel sighed. "Dad, about what happened?" I waited. Things were tense. Mm. Vanessa was stressed. Mm. He grew irritated already. Can you stop doing this? Doing what? Answering like that. I almost laughed. What exactly would you like me to say? He didn't answer immediately. Then finally he muttered, I didn't mean it the way it seemed. There was not an apology, a revision. You said I was a jerk. I was frustrated. No, ikuragdako. You were honest. That silence lasted much longer. Dad, let me ask you something. My voice remained calm, but my chest felt tight. If your mother were alive instead of me, would you have spoken to her that way too? He answered too slowly. That's different. Why? Because Mom. He stopped himself. Because Mom what? Another silence. Then finally, quietly, she understood people better. I closed my eyes. Even now, he blamed me for his cruelty. Take care of yourself, Daniel, I said softly. Dad. I hung up before he finished. After that call, something shifted permanently inside me. Hope disappeared. Pain remained, but hope left completely. And strangely, losing hope made life simpler. Weeks passed. I settled back into village routines slowly. Morning coffee on the porch, feeding chickens, repairing old fences. The doctor still warned me about my heart condition, but physical work kept my mind steady. Martha visited often, usually pretending she needed help with something unnecessary just to check on me. One afternoon, while we repaired a broken gate, she finally asked the question everyone else avoided. You gonna forgive him? I hammered a nail quietly before answering. I already did. She looked surprised. That easy. Forgiveness and trust aren't the same thing. Martha nodded slowly. Fair point. Then she studied me carefully. But you still love him. I stopped hammering. Unfortunately. Because that was the tragedy of parenthood nobody warns you about. Your love survives even after respect dies. About a month after returning home, an official-looking envelope arrived in my mailbox from Chicago. I assumed it was medical paperwork or bank documents. Instead, inside was an invitation. Daniel and Vanessa were hosting a corporate charity gala downtown. Formal attire required. At the bottom, a handwritten note from Daniel read, Thought this might be a chance for us to move forward. I stared at the card for several minutes, trying to understand it. After humiliating me, after sending me away like unwanted luggage, now he wanted reconciliation at a public event filled with wealthy colleagues. Something about it felt wrong immediately. Martha agreed after reading it. This isn't about fixing your relationship, she said flatly. Then what is it about? Image control. Deep down, I knew she was probably right. Daniel hated unresolved appearances. Maybe people at work had started asking questions about his father disappearing suddenly. Maybe guilt mixed with professional anxiety. Either way, the invitation didn't feel genuine. I almost threw it away. But that night, I kept thinking about Ethan. I hadn't spoken to my grandson since leaving Chicago. Maybe attending would let me see him again. So against my better judgment, I called Daniel the next day. I got the invitation. He sounded relieved instantly. So you'll come? I haven't decided. Dad, I know things ended badly, but this could be good for us. Good for us. There was that careful corporate language again. Still, after a long silence, I answered, I'll think about it. 3 days later, Ethan called unexpectedly from Daniel's phone. Grandpa. His voice immediately softened something inside me. Hey there, buddy. Are you coming to the big dinner? Maybe. Please come. He lowered his voice dramatically. These people are boring. I laughed despite myself. Then Ethan said something that changed my decision completely. I miss you. Children rarely hide truth behind pride. I miss you too. After we hung up, I sat alone at the kitchen table, staring out the window toward the fields. Part of me knew attending that gala was a mistake waiting to happen. But another part of me, the foolish father part that still existed somehow, wanted one final chance to understand whether any piece of my son remained salvageable. So the following morning, I walked upstairs, opened the old closet in my bedroom, and removed the only formal suit I owned. The same dark navy suit I wore at Eleanor's funeral 15 years earlier. It still fit barely. I stood before the mirror, studying the old man staring back at me. Gray hair, wrinkled hands, tired eyes. But beneath all that, there was still dignity. Chicago had nearly made me forget that. I brushed dust from the